Okay, we're going to talk about thread fit, form, and functions, what we call it in the field. There's always different classifications of threads, 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B. And we talk about percentages of threads, meaning that if the thread was 100%, it would come to a complete point like a triangle and go down to a complete point like a triangle. And that would be 100% threads. Nobody ever runs that. It's been widely discussed about how much percentage. Typically we run about 64 to the max, 72% of thread engagement, which means the top of the triangle has a flat on it, okay? Or a radius. Typically it has a radius from full form, okay? Now here's the pro action, okay? You can see the dirt in the threads. This is what Howard says will seize your collar up like nobody's business, okay? Well, there's the collar. Rotate it all the way up. You can see I didn't put that dirt there, right? I didn't put the dirt down there either. But that collar was down there from what I showed you the other day. I just ran it up, took that spring off. No big deal, did it by hand, okay? Here's the Öhlins where I'm fighting it, okay? Now take a look at the threads. We're gonna get down here and see if I can get it. See that thread? Okay, you're gonna have to look close. It comes to almost a point. This is a high percentage of thread. Let's see if I zoom in. There we go. See how that thread comes to a point there? Almost a point. See a nice radius on it. We either use what's called a partial profile, 60-degree insert. This is going to be an ISO thread because it's metric, where the other one, I haven't checked the pitch on it, is probably a UN thread. And you can see from over here, look at the top of that thread, boys and girls. Wow, it's awfully wide. Why is it wide? Notice it doesn't come to a point. Notice it's flat. This has a lesser percentage of threads on it, okay? And I know my iPad's not the greatest, but that's a lower percentage of thread, okay? Because it does not come to a point, okay? Which means we have less threads engaged. Instead of having, you know, 68 to 72% thread, as you see, kind of comes to a point. You can see it's got a radius on it. I can actually see it better with my iPad than I could on a comparator, as opposed to that one. See the flat on it? Less engagement of thread. Now what we're talking about is fit, form, and function, okay? If you've ever tried to thread something together that's got a real tight class of fit, you know, you've got to thread it and it's kind of hard to turn. And a lot of times you just want that nut to fly on like a piece of all thread, right? If you pick up a piece of all thread, that's a rolled thread. That's not a cut thread. It's actually rolled with thread rollers. And you can spin that nut down just, you know, by hand and it'll take off without you. So all we need is a certain percentage of thread to put force against the spring. And what the guys at ProAction have determined, one, when we split that collar, it relieves the pressure, right? It allows us to go over this dirt, which is not necessarily a good thing. I'm not saying go over the dirt. Please clean your shocks, okay? But in the ProAction's case, it's not that big a deal. And it's not going to seize up. One, because of the hard anodized. Two, because of the lower percentage of thread. And three, because of the split collar. This is a clear or silver anodized, which is not hard. It has a high percentage of thread. That is not needed. If anybody has stripped this collar off where the spring has actually pushed it and ripped the threads off, boy, I'd be surprised. I bet you could replace the spring with a solid steel sleeve, run it with no flex, and you still wouldn't rip that collar off because when it clamps tight. So the higher percentage of thread is not needed. Here, they've probably got more percentage of thread than what's needed, okay? And when we see this, we get complaints from customers in the field doing bulkhead fittings to go through a water outlet on a boat. They used to do superchargers. And boy, when they were threading that through the hull of the bolt, they just wanted that thing just to fly on there and then be able to tighten up. They didn't, you know, because it was 3-4 inches long a thread. And because we didn't know what thickness the hull was. Well, they didn't want to have to fight it every inch of the way. They just wanted that nut to fly on there. And then when it contacted the hull, be able to tighten down without stripping the thread. And that's what we see here, okay? So there's a flat on top. Doesn't come to a point. I'm not greatest at taking videos, but this is what we got. Again, dark gray, gray to dark gray to blacks, hard anodized, pretty common, okay? The Europeans have a lot tighter, stricter EPA protocol when it comes to coolants, cutting lubricants, things like that. There's a lot of dry machining, typically originates over in Europe because they can't really discharge and do the coolant the way they do. So the coatings tend to follow suit. Not to say they have bad coatings, but we still have a little bit lax on EPA laws over here. So that's why you don't see chrome shops like you used to. A lot of hexavalent chromium is outlawed a lot of places. But anyhow, that's what we got there. That's why that one will fly right past that dirt that Howard says will seize up any shock body, and I will quote him, bar none, unquote. And if you disagree with that, bring your money, bring your title, bring it to my place, and I will show you how that will seize up just as easily as that one will seize up. So there you go. There you have it. Thanks.